Hi guys, welcome to the garden. These raspberries are some of our favourite berries to grow, only coming a close second to the strawberry. They're delicious, they're relatively easy to grow, and with the price they're setting you back in the shops these days, I think it's an absolute win-win to include these in your garden. So the purpose really of today's video is just to share with you some of the tips I've used to increase our harvest so I can match the ever-growing appetite of our family of 4. Tip number 1 is pruning. And the reason why I'm starting with this one first is because if you get this one wrong, it could completely eliminate your harvest for that season. So with raspberries, it's relatively straightforward and it's completely dependent on the type of variety that you have. So this variety behind me is an autumn fruiting variety. And as such, it grows its fruit on first year growth, also known as primer canes. So with these, once they've fruited, either come through at the end of autumn or, which I prefer, the start of spring or late winter. And all you have to do is come through at the base and cut it probably an inch or so away from the surface of the soil. If, however, you're growing a summer fruiting variety, these fruit on second year growth, known as floral canes. So what you're going to need to do is let them grow for a single season. They won't have any flowers or fruit on just yet, and they may have started producing some laterals because that's where the fruiting buds will form next year. And what you're going to have to do is wait just one more year and then you'll see your fruit. Once they've fruited and you definitely know that you're not going to get any more fruit on that particular cane, then come back and cut it just to the base, just like I said previously. So tip number 2 is fertilizing. When it comes to growing fruit, raspberries, strawberries, blueberries, anything for that matter, they all appreciate a good feed of their favorite 3 components, which is known as nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium, or as you'll see on all your fertilizer boxes and tubs, something known as NPK. The nitrogen is going to supply it with a lovely amount of amino acids which can build up into their proteins so the plant can get nice and big. Your phosphorus is going to help with your root formation, your flower production and therefore your eventual fruit. And then lastly, potassium, which will help with the general health of the plant, ensure that any diseases are at a minimal and therefore help increase your harvest. So for us, that's achieved by my favourite fertilizer of the lot, which is your blood, fish and bone, which has a nice equal amount of these 3 components. And with this, I'll combine it with some fresh compost, give it a little bit of a mix and apply it to the base of my plants as a top dressing at the end of winter to give it the best possible chance in the next growing season. If, however, like us, you're growing your raspberries in pots, what I would advise is also an additional liquid feed. I do this every kind of few weeks during the flowering season and then stop when the fruit started to form. Tip number 3, watering. Raspberries, they're relatively shallow rooted, and as such the bulk of their roots exist in the first 6 to 8 inches of the soil, so therefore they're going to appreciate a slightly higher watering frequency. And if you're growing them in pots and have had a dry summer like we have here in the UK, I've been watering these as frequently as every single morning for the last couple of months. Tip number 4, mulching. By adding a couple of inches of an organic matter just like those oak wood chips, it can really help your plants. 1, it's going to prevent your weeds getting a footing, and 2, it's going to really help conserve water, which is just going to aid to what I said previously about that shallow root system and help save your money when it comes to your watering bills. Tip number 5, sunlight. Raspberries do very well if they get a decent amount of sun. This patch here gets about 6 to 8 hours, and as you can see, it's early morning here and the sun's already starting to creep in. So the reason why sunlight is important is because it provides the necessary light energy needed for a process known as photosynthesis. It's this process that takes the carbon dioxide from the air and the water from the soil, combines it together to make the plant's food, which is known as a sugar called glucose. With this glucose, if you've got more of it, you're going to have more berries and you can have a bigger harvest too. Although, just like most things, you can have too much of a good thing. And in the case of these berries, we lost a few of them to some sun scorch when we had a bit of a heat wave a week or so ago, which looks just like this with its characteristic white colour facing towards the sun. If you want to reduce the risk of this happening to your berries, then just simply get some shade cloth and apply it to your plants if it's ever an extremely hot or sunny day. Tip number 6, variety. We've had way more success growing autumn fruiting varieties as opposed to any of the summer bearing ones, and the main reason for this is bird pressure. By the time it gets to autumn, birds have had their fill of things like blackberries, wild plums, and so they've really become disinterested in these berries by that point. And in addition to this, if you really want to get the birds away from them, try growing a yellow fruiting variety, which I'll show you just in a second. So a little bonus tip for you if you've made it this far in the video. If you've got an autumn fruiting variety, just like this delicious full gold, that bears fruit on primer canes, and you don't have many shoots growing from the surface of the soil, so like these that were recently planted, then what you can actually do is take advantage of this space by making a heading cut about 2 feet from the surface of the soil. What that's going to do is going to remove the apical dominance and cause all of these lateral branches to form. Of each of these lateral branches, all of them have the capacity to create just as much fruit as a single prime cane. So from 2 canes, we've actually got about 10 different branches, so about 5 times the amount if we were to just leave these canes as normal this first year. So I hope you found those tips useful and you can utilise them in your own back garden to increase your own raspberry harvests. I'll end this video with a little sample of what we've picked so far this year.